Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant.
My name is Stephanie Fulda, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. First, I need to announce the winner of last month's competition to win the Grant mug. Again, my push and method worked, and I got a lot of comments. The one to win this time is Isabel Bodalo from Rise in Sweden. And why is that? That's because she opened her heart with a comment sharing how difficult emotionally it was to shift from researcher to research manager, because the respect for her as a professional evaporated in the eyes of her old co-researchers. A true eye-opening comment. Congratulations, Isabel. Lots of you are doing communication and dissemination out there, so I am continuously picking up different guests that can add new perspectives on how to work with this. Stephanie Fulda is head of the communications department in the German RTO, nova-Institut. She is responsible for the communication and dissemination involvement in EU proposals and projects. She has done this for many years, and in this conversation she shares how her team works together with the different research departments when getting involved in proposals and how they work with their role in the projects that get funding. A nice exchange with excellent input for any professional working with this field. Please enjoy.
Grant. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today we're going to continue down a path that I've been covering quite a lot recently: communication, dissemination in EU projects and impact. And it's a topic that a lot of you are dealing with on there. So that's, of course, why I am covering it. And there are a lot of people that have a lot of nice things to say or thoughts to share, practices how you work with these things. So that's the motivation for today's episode. And I have a guest. Stephanie, welcome.
Yes, hello. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast, Niels.
Of course. And you are one of this is an example of me seeing something nice popping up on LinkedIn. And then I reach out to people and check if these persons would like to join the podcast. And this is one of these cases. Stephanie, before we dig into the topic of the episode here, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Of course. Well, my name is Stephanie Fulda, and I'm head of the communication department of the nova-Institut based in Cologne, Germany, which is an independent research institute and science-based consultancy with focus on defossilization and renewable carbon. Nova supports clients in chemicals, plastics, and materials industries with the transition from fossil to renewable carbon derived from biomass, direct CO2 utilization and recycling. When I may, I introduce my department shortly. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just add that the responsibilities of the communication department include Nova's conferences and webinars. We do social media, newsletters, and of course, communication, dissemination, and exploitation for national and European research projects. My team is also responsible for Nova's external communication and marketing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have a section where we talk a little bit more about Nova. But maybe we just take the fly in right away. So today we're going to talk about communication, dissemination, and impact in EU projects. This is because this is something you do a lot.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about your just shortly flying on how you work with this, and then we dig into it, of course, in the episode.
How we work with European proposals on communication, dissemination, and exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course. I mean, everyone who is dealing with European proposals or Horizon proposals knows, for instance, the CBE-JU calls. One has just started recently. We look at them and check out, is there any call that's interesting for us, specifically for NOVA? And is there something we can relate to? And then coming to the communications department, it's often a little bit easier to connect with any proposal, because basically we do everything we can for communication and dissemination and exploitation of the results. So we screen the proposals, and if they apply to us, we apply to them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, we exchange a little bit in the pre-talk about the difference between the results and impact. Something that you work specifically with?
You mean the difference between results and impact? I mean, impact is something that's really important for us. There's a section called maximize to measure the impact with communication and dissemination in the proposal. So it's really relevant for us. And speaking of the difference between results and impact, I mean, it all depends on the innovation and scientific results that a project wants to release. But the goal is to reach greater impact with the results, to reach an audience, to reach stakeholders, and that is when we come into play.
Yeah, and the communication dissemination is sort of enabling, it's facilitating moving towards that.
Exactly.
So that's why it's key to all projects that are being funded. All right. Stephanie, nova-Institut, a little bit. Can you dig a little bit more about what kind of organization you are and what you, because you already now mentioned a little bit the focus, but can you share a little bit more?
Yes, of course. Nova-Institut is quite proud to be an independent and private research institute. It was founded in 1994, so we have been in the market for about 30 years now. And its core mission is to drive the transformation of the chemical and material industries towards climate neutrality, and that is by shifting from fossil carbon to renewable carbon. When you look at the structure of nova-Institut, you will find 5 departments which work very closely together. There's one for the technology and markets, which do all the market analysis and trend reports. Then we have the economy and policy department, which provides analysis of economic and policy frameworks. And they have really good contacts to Brussels and the European institutions. Then we have the sustainability department, doing all the stuff connected with life cycle assessments and environmental impacts. And then we have my department, the communications department. We do all communication and dissemination activities, as I said before, in those European or national funded proposals, but also for industry partners if it's suitable. And we do all the marketing for NOVA itself as an institute. And very important to mention, NOVA is quite proud to host a few conferences with in total more than 1,000 participants per year. So that's quite a workload too. And then last but not least, we also have the Office of the Renewable Carbon Initiative at nova-Institut. This initiative has more than 70 industry members. And the RCI, as we call it, promotes, again, the defossilization of the chemical and materials industry. And those companies connect on this shared goal, addressing climate change by reducing the reliance on fossil carbon. So that's the structure.
Yeah. And you survive, so to say, you're the way of the business model, so to say. So the companies, they pay you to do specific research on technology. So do you get state fund for some of your activities, or how does that work?
Yes, indeed. We have many clients from the private sector, many brands actually, which are all interested to find out on the strategy of fossil-free plastics, for instance. They are all working on measures how to reach that. And it's not that easy because we all rely on plastic material, and not in every case it can be substituted, but it can be produced in a different way. So these companies ask us to do analysis, economic analysis, market research, technology research, or basically LCAs, life cycle assessments, to find out how environmental friendly the way is, how they have been working with. And that's one way. So that's the private sector, which is quite large as a client field. And the other sector is the public funded sector with European proposals or national proposals or organizations linked to that who apply in consortia together for public funded projects. And then we jump in with our departments with their special expertise and with communication and dissemination and support them as well. Yes.
Yeah, a classic RTO organization.
Yes.
So, where of course you will have to be quite professional around accessing public funding and EU funding also in this respect that we're talking about here. So my best guess is that you have a strong team.
Of course. Yes, I have a strong team. Yes, we have quite a large team doing dissemination activities.
How many do you have a team specifically dedicated to EU projects?
Yes.
Indeed, how many are
indeed. Let me start the other way around. In total, we are about 10 people in the communications department. And since we are so heavily involved in offering large conferences and webinars, we have a couple of people working on that field completely. Then let's say 4 to 5 people work on dissemination projects. And the rest is handling newsletters and social media and other activities.
All right. Thanks.
I'm Barbara de Mena, and you must listen to The Grant.
Let's step into the core content of this episode. So we're going to circle around. The backbone is going to be communication dissemination activities, right? We're going to, as we have split it up into proposal development and the implementation phase, and there might be overlaps as we talk. But let's just attack the proposal development phase. So you have 10 people, and but you don't have 10 people on each project. Right?
No, of course not. No, that would be wonderful.
Because
No.
you don't have that kind of money in new
No,
projects either for that. So
no.
how many people do you normally allocate per project?
Oh, that's difficult to say because, as I said, we also have other departments at Nova. Usually, they are also involved in projects. Very often, it's not only the communications department, it's also, let's say, the technology department or my colleagues from the sustainability department, who also have their share on European proposal call.
Of course.
And there is a good interchange and exchange between us as colleagues. And even in my team, usually we have, let's say, 2 people who are absolutely responsible for a specific call. But they, of course, have a team around. We have support from the IT department to do all the online stuff, creating websites. We have our graphic department doing all the stuff to create templates and logo and visuals. We have other members of my team supporting them with, let's say, for instance, print production or with events, webinars, and stuff like that. So it's really hard to say how many people work on it. It's quite a bit of the team and other colleagues in the house are involved in each proposal.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's normally like this, that when you have someone specifically responsible for layouts, then they do the layout for all the projects you're involved in.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
So if we zoom in on the proposal phase, these people would not be involved in that. They would probably just give input if something specifically needed about, for instance, pricing on doing, so for the budget part, what will it cost to set up a website, or what will it run to run a conference, how much,
Yes.
But for the proposal writing itself, how many do you normally involve? One?
Well, basically, it's very much a management task. So I'm heavily involved in writing the proposals, and
so that's you.
Yes, but not only. Sometimes we have several calls in several proposals in one call. So we are really transparent with our partners and let them know, okay, there have been several inquiries to us to do these proposals. Is this okay? And then if they say yes, we separate, and I wouldn't work on the other proposal. There's kind of frontier in between. So my team with very experienced proposal writers, actually, they have experience as well. They take care of other proposals. And if there are too many proposals at the same time that have to be written from our side, then of course I ask my team as well and say, can you take care of that proposal while I'm doing the other one? And then several people work on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that's, of course, you have different layers. Because normally in your corner, you wouldn't be coordinating the proposals. You would have a coordinator that does the overall coordination of the proposal development, and then you would step in as a partner with communication dissemination.
Yes. nova-Institut is always project partner and never coordinator of those consortia.
No. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, normal in your corner.
No.
Do you... This is always, with communication dissemination and exploitation, this corner. It's as I always say, I'm talking about these things. This is a highly traditionally it's a section that is highly copy-paste section. Traditionally, because I've been working also as a grants consultant myself, so this is and I've been by managers, sometimes even encouraged to, but you just have to copy paste it. You don't have to develop anything. You just put in, and this is of course the horrible way to do it, because that's not developing a proposal. That's just not. Now, but the problem with communication dissemination section in the proposal is that it's very easy to fall into a pattern of how we always used to do things in and how we used to describe them and what we want to do. So creativity often is a little bit the stepdaughter in the overall proposal, where the coordinator is focused on the technical content or the core content of developing a specific technology or whatever. So people's creativity doesn't, or really wanting to shape an ingenious dissemination communication work, it's often the stepdaughter. It's often something that you have the work package lead is of course taking it seriously, but the partners that needs to contribute to it, it's can be quite difficult to get a real blood flowing fast in the veins when it comes to that part. It's something that you have to push for them to send you some information. You have to push to for it to exchange on developing it better. So, have you found a way?
Yeah. First of all, I absolutely agree. I mean, we look usually at 70 pages written text. So that's nothing that really fuels your creativity, at least from my point of view. And then what we usually do to answer your question is we are quite fast, at least from my point of view, with sending a first draft of text to the proposal, which of course tends to be generic by origin. It's not that deep. It's yes, sometimes a little bit copy paste. It's the first look at the new proposal. You say, okay, we could add this or that, but it's because we send it so quickly to offer our project coordinators some kind of input. It tends to be and must be at the beginning a little bit generic, and we mention that as well. We say, okay, this is from our experience a good text to start with to describe our work package or the impact section. We have very good experience with that, but it's still a little bit generic. So please be careful. It's only the start. And what sometimes happens, it really depends on the consortium you're working with. Sometimes it goes the way it is supposed to be. That means we can work in more detail on the ideas and the specifica of that specific proposal with our text. The starting text was only the starting text, and then we work on it with the partners and with the coordinator on the text in more detail. But sometimes you send that text with the best intention and letting them know, please be aware, it's only a first draft and we have to work in more detail and find more creative ideas and make it more specific to your case and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes they just take it. And
Oh, that's great. That's it. We don't have to focus on that anymore. Excellent.
Exactly.
Thanks.
They probably are happy to receive that text and say, oh, that's good. We take it and you are done. We don't have to take care with you furthermore. But that's a pity. We would actually like to elaborate a little bit more into more detail on those texts and make it more specific for that relevant core. Yes.
I think, because I've been sitting and developing these sections myself as a grants consultant, because sometimes we would step in and take that role in as partners. So we would develop the proposal, but we would also take a role as a partner in dealing with it. So what I would do, I would try to make some nice curved balls. You understand? I would try to say, okay, let's try to make instead of writing all the normal things, have workshops, or we will have flyers or the website. But then I would sort of add that to say, okay, why don't we make a forum of farmers, for instance, or try to create a platform for them where they can do this or that. I try to play a little bit with the format of dissemination.
Yeah.
Like how to engage people. Because people, it's the same. For me, it was the same back then. You said something and then, yeah, that's fine.
Yes. Yeah, but
so the coordinator would be fine, and the rest is yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We have to focus on the technology here. So
yeah, well, sometimes we keep asking them again and again, and asking them. So how about the text? We don't you need more input from our side? And how far have you proceeded with the proposal and stuff like that? But it very much depends on the coordinator, and I understand that situation as well, because as a coordinator, you work together with so many project partners, and you try to put together that proposal in the best possible way. So of course, there are so many other things you have to look at. But that's why we keep asking, hey, our text, that wasn't the final text. Can we work on it a little bit more? Do you need more input and stuff like that? And I like the other way. Sometimes you work online on the proposal with all partners. That's the other way. You see the complete proposal text, and you see everyone doing their remarks and comments and all that kind of stuff. It can be quite confusing, actually, to have so much text in front of you. But at least you see how the text is developing, in what direction, and that is a possibility for us to jump in and say, okay, we make it more specific. Who are the target groups, or what kind of events are competitive events in that sector, for instance. That's just the basics. But that way you can see how the text develops, and that makes it possible for us to improve our input for that proposal.
Mm-hmm. Because it is like this, we expect that's nice, but often in these, if you have a traditional, so you have these milestone partner meetings in the proposal process, right, where everybody have to be present and you go through the work. When you reach to this, people, they zone out. It's like their eyes adjust to infinite, and you're speaking to the void, and it's like your words are just dissolving into thin air. And then when you're finished, then let's move on.
Well, of course. I mean, all of us have so many other things to do. Work is so busy, isn't it? I mean, we want to put as much time and capacity into a really good proposal, because all what we want is that it will win, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you have so much other stuff to do. And I understand the situation for everyone. And I find actually that when we have those meetings or email traffic and conversation, I find that quite supportive and understanding from every side and everyone is doing his best to put another puzzle into that game and make it better. But of course, there are other things to do, and we have to handle that too.
I think what sometimes helped me was to say, okay, then I scrapped. I said, no, I'm just going to work with the ones that want to, So we had the work package group of people, and not everybody is in it.
Yes,
because everybody has to be in it. But I'm picking the ones and just working together with the few ones that actually had something at where you could actually develop some exchange or have nice reflections on what you could do. So that would be helpful. Yeah. But everybody needs to understand that this is related to impact, which is important to get the project through. So it's if you make a standard copy-paste section, you're not going to get the proposal.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get the project. So.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work, and you really have to make it more specific. On the other hand, there are certain parts of the impact section that will repeatedly come, but you have to make the right fit to that proposal that you're working on. And I think that's really important to understand. I find the text template very helpful to remind me what I have to say in the impact section or in the work package. But then I look at it and try to make it more specific and if I can, more creative as well, of course.
Mm. No. All right. Anything else to ask about? Anything else to add on the proposal phase?
No, not from my side.
No. Let's move into the implementation. So, what's your success rate?
That's hard to say.
I'm just curious. If it's confidential, don't have to say it.
No, I really cannot.
That was a blank, bold question.
Yeah, that's quite bold, and I'm not prepared for it. Actually, I don't know our success rate.
Just as a rule of thumb,
what I can tell is that last year, from my side, from the communication department, we participated in about, I think, 9 proposals.
Yep.
And 2 of them have won. Okay. So that was quite nice for us, actually. We were satisfied with that success rate. But I have no clue if that is good or not. It's just for us, it's
20% is just fine, because it's a matter of within the area that you are working within. It's quite competitive. You have a lot of organizations, both industry and research, that is working with bioeconomy. So I've been doing proposals myself within that area towards the circular bio-based, and it is, it's sometimes you have 100 proposals for one
Yes, I know.
Or 60 proposals for one call. So it's having 2 out of 9. Yeah. That's just fine.
I mean, in that period of time, most of them have been CBE JU calls. So we know the amount of proposals that have been given into that proposal time. So I think that was fine for us. And to be fair, it depends so much on the idea of the proposal, on the coordinator. It's so great to have a fantastic coordinator in a proposal, and it makes so much difference. And then, of course, nothing happens if the core idea is not wonderful. So you need a really good innovative idea, a new technology, something that really is fascinating. So these are aspects, they don't come from us. we only help with communications, or my colleagues help with life cycle assessment or policy analysis, stuff like that. But the original idea, of course, comes from someone else, and then you need a really good coordinator, putting everyone perfectly together, find the right partner, and that is really important to win, from my point of view.
So just to explain the listeners, just so everybody is on board here. So the CBE that has been mentioned here, that's the Circular Bio-based Europe joint undertaking, and that's the undertaking that is responsible for the bioeconomy and circular economy calls in Horizon Europe. So they have their own call section of the work program, but it's part, of course, of the Horizon Europe. So the whole setup there. So and for more, if you're more interested on this out there, I do have actually specific interviews with the Circular Bio-based Europe team. Two actually. I have a special on the Info Day a couple of years ago. I did a special on that. That's very nice. And then I have a specific 2-episode podcast about what Circular Bio-based Europe it actually is. I can make a link to that in the episode notes. No, that was just a note.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Not everyone might be familiar with that
At all.
That kind of call. So thank you for explaining it.
Of course, that's my role as a podcast host, to make sure everybody is on board. No.
Yes.
So you, of course, luckily and very fortunate, you sometimes are in successful proposals. So you need to implement some of the things that you've been writing now. Often it happens so that when you reach to the implementation phase, the project start up, then there is actually some flexibility within the communication dissemination part to develop, maybe put some meat on the bone that you have been loosely describing in the proposal, and then you sort of do some workshops internally in the partner group at some partner meetings, where you sort of get more concrete on what's going to happen on specific workshops or trainings or whatever. So can you share a little bit about how your role is when you start to execute projects? Also, this element of starting to actually getting it into life.
Yes. Well, first of all, me and my team, we try to understand the JA, the General Agreement, and check if everything is from our side nicely described, especially looking at the KPIs and stuff like that. So, and then sometimes it happens, as you said, that some things are not described specifically or precisely enough. It gives you some room and space to figure something new and be a little bit creative. And in that case, there's one thing from my experience. Of course, we start with the things we have to do. And there are a few things you always do in those proposals. To give you one example, of course, you start in the first half of a year with logo creation, templates, visuals for that proposal, and with the website. That's kind of standard. And that gives you some time to get familiar with the whole project. And when you say, for instance, of course, we will do some social media activity for that proposal in the next upcoming 3 to 4 years, you have to think about what exactly you will do in that time and what are the news in that period of time. What kind of activities will you start? Just looking at social media, for instance, or if you think of webinars and workshops, you have to find out what are the topics, what will be most interesting to the topics, or sometimes you have to find new ways to find your target group, right? At Nova, luckily, we have many newsletters and a very good LinkedIn account where we can share all that kind of information, because it all fits to our core topics of bioeconomy, renewable carbon, and defossilization. But sometimes you have to look a little bit further and try to figure out, is there a separate target group that you also want to reach, and do we reach them, and how can we reach them, and with what kind of measure would that be possible? And and then we do sometimes brainstormings, of course, to find out what can we do and add to the original ideas that we had when we wrote the proposal. That was only the starting point.
Yeah, I guess you also, I've been doing that at least. I guess that's also something you've been doing, to develop a communication dissemination strategy.
Yes, of course, it's not possible. I didn't mention that, but it all starts with the communication and dissemination strategy and plan. That's the beginning of all.
Indeed, to sort of get it, but that's everything. And now I've just been running I've been running a communication series, a short series with a journalist, and then I've just been recording and releasing my implementation series, the episodes on communication and one on dissemination. Yeah, and exactly this, it's you need to have things. It's everything, because it's not just, it's everything from what social media do you go on, how do you work with this specific, but it's also on layout, colors, graphic colors, principles of like how do we fonts, it's everything.
Yeah, the corporate design, and I actually enjoy that kind of start for a long-lasting project. Usually those projects are 3 to 4 years. They last at least 3 to 4 years. So I think it's quite convenient to start with corporate design, website, because you have to understand the content to do the website, of course, and you can put in your visuals and stuff like that. So it helps you to get even more and more familiar with the project. And at the same time, very often the project itself does not have always so much progress in the first half or the first year. Right? It takes some time until the technology or the innovation or whatever is to be developed will have first results. So I think that's actually quite a good way to start with, and to get familiar with everything, and to list on your side list, okay, I have 1 or 2 or 3 extra ideas which are maybe a little more creative or more helpful to reach our goal of communication and dissemination, and to reach more impact. And then it gives you some time to elaborate on that and to talk with your colleagues, and then make a suggestion to the coordinator and saying, would it be a good idea if we use the time to do interviews with the experts, for instance? Maybe that's something you have not listed before in the proposal, but by the time then you have figured out the experts, the project partners of the proposal are so interesting, the institutes that are involved are so interesting, the industry partners have so great stuff to talk about. maybe we should do an interview series. And that sometimes that kind of idea sometimes only develops after a short time when you get more familiar with the project.
Yeah. Now, of course, that's a synergy. It's a everything is in when you have to use your brain, so to say, when you're developing proposals, when you're doing projects, and you do it again. So that's a back and forth process, right? So you do this, and then you get this idea, and you do it in a project, and then the next proposal you'll be doing, then you will be incorporating that approach
Yes.
because you saw that it was But indeed, this is a very good example, and then everything comes. So from that creativity comes out. You have the interviews out, but then you can maybe make some nice videos with them.
Yes.
You can make some graphical videos also in Canva, whatever, to make things nice, to make a nice, conceptualize it even, to sort of make it recognizable. That so it's a lot of sometimes it doesn't take much than a seed of an idea to suddenly fold something out that's very nice.
Yeah.
And that is very approachable for people, because the whole point, right? The point is to make some attention.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And engage, because that's the dissemination part. Yeah. So you have the communications, of course, to make, and then the engagement part of dissemination is that you actually get people involved in one way or the other.
Absolutely. From a communication perspective, you always want to reach engagement. You not only want to inform them or disseminate results, or in case of European proposals, exploit the results. You always want to engage people. Social media is a good way. Workshops are a good way. Webinars are a good way. Going to other events, conferences, work together with related projects is a fantastic way to get engagement. And that's so nice. And it's also very nice for the team when they see engagement. It's very rewarding because you see your work has some impact, actually. Yeah, people react on it and interact with you and engage.
Yeah, and I think what I have been fighting or struggling a lot with, worked a lot with, reflected a lot on, is the engagement on social media, because it's not that easy if you work on LinkedIn, for instance. That's not a medium where people, they exchange a lot, because they're afraid of writing something that is related to their career. They hold a little bit back. Everybody, it's not a medium that's so easy to work with when it comes to this. And for projects that you're working with, you don't want to work on Facebook. You might do, but you might not have the right audience there. So I guess you have had a lot of these, and you have still a lot of these reflections, same reflections and considerations on how to work best with getting people to actually give some feedback. Because one thing is to make a post, another thing is to get actually people to think about it or write something in that post too. That is,
yeah.
I work a lot with it as a podcaster.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting for you as well, right? If you put your podcast online or inform people, hey, here's the new episode, you want some interaction and engagement. But again, there is some kind of information overflow out there in the real world and in the digital world specifically. So what we have been working on is to, first of all, to raise the amount of people that we reach on social media, for instance. When you look at the customer journey, you want to first inform them and to raise awareness. And at the end of the tail, there is engagement. You have to start with the other stuff first, at least from my point of view. And specifically in social media, people tend to interact if it's funny or kind of sexual content. So that is something you probably don't want to do in our topic area. That's nothing that we can do. To be a little bit funny can be sometimes helpful, and people will interact. And what we have been exploring a lot is to work with really good content. We put a lot of effort in creating articles for social media, longer pieces of content that people can read if they want to. And we send them as well via newsletters to the audience. So there are different ways how to interact. And usually if the content is really interesting, which is something you don't always can manage, that you have the perfect content, but you can work on it, right? And present it the way that it is interesting for the audience. And then you connect it with something personal. Let's say in social media, you tag other partners and institutes that have been working on that topic or in that proposal. That was the starting point. And then people start interacting because you have really good content and you have a personal connection to that topic. And that sometimes helps, at least from our experience.
Yeah, it's very tricky, and it's something where you constantly have to, especially the thing is, I'm doing this podcasting thing on the side, right? It's a spare time initiative, so there's a limit to how professional I can be at it because we don't have the time. It's also a matter of money. But for instance, I of course do the monitoring. Of course, do whatever I can to monitor what happens when I throw things out, what happens on LinkedIn with my posts, what have you. And that's also something that I guess that you do very much. You constantly analyze and survey and keep an eye on what's actually, what's the reach, what's the reaction, what worked, what didn't, and constantly adjusting and trying to find a way through.
Absolutely, that's really important. And to give you an example, for us, LinkedIn is a very interesting social media channel. And
that's where your target group is.
Yes, absolutely. It's perfect for us. You have different groups that deal with the topic related to your project, and it's B2B, and our target group is on LinkedIn. So it's really interesting for us. And last year we decided we would not have enough followers on our LinkedIn account. So we started activities to raise that amount of followers. And within 1 year, we doubled the amount of followers, which was really great, and it's still growing. So that's very interesting for us to see. But that also means that we put a lot of effort into LinkedIn. As I said, we really try to convince and to inform people with good topics and good content. And then, of course, we monitor. And that's easy on social media. You can monitor it very easily. You can also do that if you do online publications, then you monitor those. It's just an example. On LinkedIn, it's very easy, and we can check immediately if that post was successful or not, if that article was good or not, if that newsletter was helpful or not. And we try to find our learnings from that. But to be honest, It's not like climbing up the ladder step by step. Sometimes we are surprised what kind of post is successful or not. And the algorithm of LinkedIn is sometimes quite confusing. So you have to adapt to changes once in a while and say, okay, maybe I don't understand it, but this was successful, or even it was not successful, but we try to get our learnings from that. Yes.
Yeah, it's that's the professionalism around this, right? It's this is what you have to do, these things. You have to try at least to understand how to work with the algorithm. You have to see and learn and understand what works and what doesn't.
Absolutely. As I said before, we also do conferences at nova-Institut, and each of those conferences have between 200 and 500 participants. And we can see every single day, does something happen? Do we get registrations to those conferences? If we do something, if we do not do something, if we do something differently, if we use another channel, we see how things relate to each other. And that's tremendously interesting for us and helpful. We are still learning. I mean, that's an endless road of learning, but the only way is to monitor and to analyze the results and try to extract some conclusions and go forward on that.
Is there anything about the collaboration in the with the other partners you want to share? Is there anything about the work when it rolls that makes sense to?
Once you have won a proposal, you mean?
Yeah, the implementation.
Yes.
Phase.
Yeah, it's tremendously helpful for the whole project if the project partners work well together. And I find that again and again really, really important. Sometimes you have projects where the project partners work nicely together. Coming to communication and dissemination, for instance, that's a part. Every project partner has to contribute to communication and dissemination. It's not only our part, it's our responsibility to do communication and dissemination, but all project partners have to contribute to communication and dissemination. And sometimes that works well and sometimes it doesn't. So it's very important that you have a good connection to the partners and that they have an understanding of the role and importance of communication and dissemination, that it's all about helping results of the project to become and have more impact, basically. Yes.
Do you sit on their heads? You know, I've just been in my former position. We were part of a project, and the coordinator we had an Excel spreadsheet of where we had to put in the dissemination activities and the reach we had with the activities, communication, dissemination. You know, and that was something that was rolling throughout each work period. You know.
Yeah.
So do you have sort of the same tools to sit on people's head? Come on, guys.
Yeah, but to be fair, I think that's not always that much interesting for all project partners, how the figures are in the communication and dissemination part. That's something interesting, at least for the coordinator, yes, but not always for all project partners. Of course, the team that works on a project, they have to monitor, they fill in the ECAS sheets, they do the reporting almost every half a year, and put every single result of communication and dissemination in those reports and their updates. So regarding the coordinator, they are very well informed, but I would dare to say that we don't push it too far to inform all project partners if they do not want to be involved in that part that much. But what we do,
responsibility.
Yeah, but what we do, let me just add this, and my team is really keen on that. Actually, they have found out that it's so important every time you meet in person or have an online meeting, usually every half a year or once a year, you have those project meetings. Then it's really, really important to emphasize the importance of cooperation regarding communication and dissemination, and that every single partner should be aware to bring their input in that field as well and connect with us. And they emphasize that heavily and strongly in those project meetings because it's just a really good occasion to talk with people and to point out how important that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Do you have anything else on the implementation phase when you run through projects?
No.
It's okay.
My name is Denitsa Nikolova, and I sincerely recommend tuning in every week.
Then we have tips, tricks, do's and don'ts. Do you want to share, like advice or some things that you advise to the listeners when they work with this?
Well, I'm sure there are many other people out there who are experienced with proposals, but if you ask me, then of course I would stress the fact that it's very important to develop a clear strategy and plan regarding communication and dissemination. It's so important to engage with the audience, and once you are able to engage with the audience, be open for changes. If you find out something works out better, then maybe you adapt and do it again, or you leave something behind that you have been hoping for that it would be successful. So a clear strategy and a clear plan for communication and dissemination is essential, and it's a must-be, of course, in every project phase. And the other part I would stress actually is the to mind that the internal communication within a consortium is important too. We should not neglect that it's really relevant to have good connections within the proposal or project and with every project partner and coordinator. And sometimes it can be difficult. We are all humans and we are all busy, and it's so much more fun to have good connections with the people you work with.
Yeah, well, it's naturally this is the stronger the communication is internally in the consortium, the better the work is carried out. That's it's just like this. I want to ask a question. So when you are working together with the institute, for instance, one of the departments, say an LCA, and then do you have any advice in that kind of in that corner of communication, like setting making sure that runs smoothly in relation to the communication dissemination part?
Well, not really an advice, but I can share what we do. We usually have a short kickoff with the other department, with the team of the other department, with the colleagues, and we clear the who is responsible as project leader concerning that specific project, and so the roles have to be clarified internally within the institute, and that's quite helpful because some things have to be done by the internal project leader within our company, and some things have to be done by the team, for instance, of sustainability, and some things from the communications team. But the project leader can be from our team or it can be from the other team. It's just necessary to clarify on that aspect. And if you have decided on the project leader, he or she is the one who pulls all the strings together in-house if there's the next project meeting or something that is important for both departments. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Because you're often together there with the more like corners from your organization. So, all right, Stephanie, we're almost there. The toughest challenge. This is what I always have. I put here toughest challenge: turning a technical project results into real world impact.
The toughest challenge, yes. There are several challenges actually. And
what's the toughest one?
And I was discussing that question with my team because I knew that you would be asking that. It's always at the end of your podcast episodes, so I was kind of prepared for that question. So my team says, and I can agree that from my experience, one thing which can be difficult is that it can be difficult to publicize and establish the project at the very beginning. Sometimes there's nothing to talk about at the very beginning of a project, and that can be tricky for communication and dissemination. So that is something you have to be aware of and think of appropriate measures to react or to be prepared for that. Secondly, it can be even worse. There might be no results from the project for a longer time of period.
Yeah.
So there is no excuse for communication and dissemination. It's not a good situation, that's for sure. But be prepared that this can happen, and that for quite long time period, you have no interesting results, and you have to think of other measures how you can communicate and disseminate in that time. Right.
Communicate about the process.
Yeah. And then, as we talked about it before, you can be confronted with little activity from the other project partners in terms of communication and dissemination. It's not always a priority to every project partner, which is absolutely okay, but that makes it a little bit more tricky for our team. And as we talked about it before, if you have, unfortunately, a consortium that doesn't talk nicely and doesn't find together, and every meeting seems to be not sufficient on even difficult, that of course is something which is really a challenge. And
But that's for everybody.
Yes,
in the consortium.
absolutely. Yes.
Stephanie, thanks. That's it.
You're welcome.
I'm just going to land the plane here before we say goodbye to the listeners. So, dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to the end. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you like this, there's a lot more on my platform, thegrant.eu, where you'll find a lot of podcast content on communication, dissemination. There's a whole communication series now with 12 episodes, short episodes. There are lots of content throughout my 3 years here where I've been talking about this. So go in there and browse through. Also categorize things, so you can go in and click the tabs on the podcast universe. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe to my email list. This is how you support a humble independent podcaster. So thank you in advance for that. And finally, don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn and do go and like The Grant page on LinkedIn also. This is where the fun happens. This is where the flow is. This is where I like stuff. This is where I comment. This is where I throw out my marketing on my episodes. This is also started making small videos every Friday about the upcoming content and so on. So do that. And it's also important. This is where I pick up my guests, a lot of them anyway. So this is how Stephanie got into the virtual podcast studio. And so can you, if you have something at heart, interesting to share. That's that.
Thank you from my side. It has been a great pleasure to talk with you. Was fun.
Of course, there's so much to talk about, and there's always interesting angles to do. So thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm happy that you like to be a part of this. So now let's say goodbye to the listeners. Bye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You will find the link to the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you will find a link to Stephanie's personal LinkedIn site and to nova-Institut. Further, there will be a link to my communication short series with more content on communication and dissemination. Finally, there is a link to Circular Bio-based Europe, as promised in the episode. In next week's episode, I will zoom in on the Grant's consultant-client relationship together with Anna Maria Spignagel, who is the director and owner of the Croatian grants consultancy company IPS Consulting. You can indeed look forward to that.